Hello, welcome to CLSP Politics. Sean Briscoe speaking. So, in April of 2025, there was a Supreme Court election. My team ran some field in Milwaukee, Racine, and Green Bay. That was what I'm calling the Green Bay Field Program 2025 experiment. We ended up picking up the entire Green Bay area in Brown County and had the opportunity to implement some changes we saw in 2024, and that's what this video is about. If you'd like to support this channel, we're on Substack and YouTube at CLSP Politics, and you can see the website at clsppolitics.substack.com. So the Green Bay Field Program 2025 experiment. So the executive summary is this basically. We have a disciplined deployment strategy, canvasser education, program management. We really get into the nuts and bolts and do predictive models on how many doors we're going to hit per day, what is our staffing, just the works. And we try to map all that out weeks before we actually get the program up and running. By doing that, we were able to outperform both Milwaukee and Racine on contacts per hour, cost per door, and more importantly, getting out low propensity voters. The model we can prove is replicable because we just did it, and scalable because we've also got modeling on how we could use that for larger programs. Let's say Milwaukee, Madison, any real city. Actually, you can take this model and move it up in scale, and we think it would be a huge change in field programs if we were able to implement this looking ahead to 2026. So some of the background, well, we worked with the SEIU in Wisconsin and Power to the Polls, which is another group, to effectively figure out what's some of the best ways to deploy and get canvassers out to knock on doors for the 2024 cycle. We had some regions like Green Bay that were notoriously difficult to staff up. And so we ended up looking at that very closely and deciding, what are some more strategies we can use for building out quality canvassers that can go out there and actually do the real getting of information out of the general voter population. Also, we had some issues. We wanted the low propensity voters to come out and really see if we could pump up the volume on voter turnout for an April election, because they're notoriously low turnout elections. Usually that the voters, and propensity basically means that we know who's likely to vote under 40% or above 40% likely. So we've identified those voters, and that those voters that don't turn out very often, when they do, can have huge impacts. So we wanted to look at that, and they also gave us a goal of 20,000 doors and a fixed time frame of about 27 days to get it all done. So our key objectives, of course, were to get the staff up, because you can't knock on doors if you don't have canvassers. So we worked really hard on that. And we also adjusted targeting with permission, of course, to expand it out to low propensity voters. And we also ran an add-on program, because what's interesting about Wisconsin is that you've got a early voting, or really it's election day registration. So as opposed to like programs in Texas where you're basically registered to vote a month or so out, and then they cut it off and no one can register for that cycle. So everyone you run into, even if it's GOTV, is a potential voter. So we took advantage of that quite a bit. And that program had started in 2024, and we just figured out cool and more interesting ways to use it and to find those other voters moving to 2025. And as 2026 is rolling up, we think we have a very good strategy. We're putting the add-ons and the low propensity voters into a targeted universe that is worth going after, and makes your return on investment is such that it shows as a real investment that actually is going to develop into more votes for your candidate. So some of our strategic innovations, I mean, for us, it's common sense, but It is innovative. We believed in a smaller group of better, well-trained canvassers. Uh, we made videos for training for canvasser information just so that they would be more educated on the front porch. And we also did some strategy videos. Just this is stuff they can look at when they're on their phone, which is where the app that they do all their canvassing comes from anyway. So it gives us an opportunity to, one, talk about the races that we're working with, talk about the candidates that we're working with, and talk about some of the strategies, best practices to get out there and actually talk to the voters. Then we would also keep that organic. We do daily coaching and peer strategy sharing, like what's working out there, what questions turning into a brick wall when there's other questions that we need to get through. What's the best way to navigate some of that, and what are some of the best ways for us to keep our doors per hour around 18, which is kind of a sweet spot. Once you take into consideration traffic, transportation, and everything else. So we worked really hard on those three things. Real quick, just a reminder, thank you for watching. If you want to support this channel, I am on Substack now at CLSP Politics, and of course on YouTube at CLSP Politics. The other strategic innovation we made was deployment efficiency. So 5 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but if it's 5 minutes times 7 canvassers times 27 canvassing days, all of a sudden you're talking about real canvassing days you're losing, hours and hours and hours of canvassing you're losing. So what we tried to do is try to get everyone up and running within 15 minutes, make sure that they do 300 minutes on the doors per day in a 6-hour shift. And then we also did our part to try, as a data guy in the management of this program, we tried to make sure our clustering of our districts were such that it made sense for our canvassers, which is actually the big bonus about everyone who's on my end, the management staff. We've all been canvassers. We all come from canvassing. So we can look at a map and know what's really going to work and what's really not. So using that kind of understanding and understanding that backtracking is the worst thing and the most inefficient way to operate a field program. If they have to backtrack, then you've done something wrong. You want them to be able to do concentric loops or long, long runs down roads with lots of contacts so you can maximize their time on the field. Because if they backtrack, they're not talking to voters. And that's where actually the whole program is, to talk to voters. So we did a lot of that, a lot of research and a lot of looking at, and what we found were the alderman districts in Green Bay worked very well. But you can cluster precincts any way you want. What you're looking for is long roads in neighborhoods, precincts that may have had, subdivisions and suburban areas that have been, broken up into multiple precincts. Well, if you actually map all those precincts together, you get very nice, long, even roads that your canvassers can knock on, and your overall efficiency does go up by quite a bit. And if you keep them out there for 300 minutes, you'll find that, one, they'll talk to more voters, which means they get more experience in front of voters, which means they get better. And we talk about that a little bit later. So the other thing that we detailed out was program mapping. And that's detailed day-by-day goals. I mean, down to the door. How many doors are we going to hit on Tuesday of the third week? Well, we knew that. Daily reports and nightly reviews. That way, we're doing daily audits of the canvassers so we can see problems before they're problems. After about a week of canvassing, I'll know who my number one canvassers are and who are the canvassers that we need to work with to see if we can up their game. And then continuously auditing to prevent bottlenecks, as far as like if I'm running into a problem or canvassers aren't getting material fast enough, which is delaying them to go out, or the way where we're fielding from could be a bottleneck. If everyone has to meet on one side of town but we're canvassing on the other, all that transportation time between point A and point B is time they're not knocking on doors. And I really want them knocking on doors within 15 or 20 minutes of leaving the headquarters. That'd be ideal. And getting the program down to that level is super important. So just to explain what it basically looked like when we implemented our program in Green Bay versus Milwaukee and Racine, this is what it looked like. We had a contact rate of plus 12%. Milwaukee had negative 8%, and Racine had negative 6%, which mathematically comes out to we had a 20, based on the overall program, 20% better contact rate. We were, our cost per door was about 25% less. Our labor costs were down because of the efficiency that we were able to go out. We did 20,000 doors in 224 shifts, as opposed to Racine, who had the same lift of 20,000 doors. They only got 81% of their doors knocked, and they had 253 shifts, which is quite, I mean, that's over 20, that's 29 more shifts than we required in Green Bay, just to give you an idea. And our costs per shifts were the same. All that stuff was the same. We just had better results in the field because the field was planned and scaled properly for our canvassing team. We also were able to maintain a pretty good morale, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that allowed us to retain our canvassers. So we didn't lose canvassers that knocked on 2,000 doors. They stayed with us because, for one, we respected the work. We worked hard with them to make the work fun and interesting, and we kept them in the loop as to how and why we're asking these questions, and and then we would get really good feedback from them. They really felt like they were part of the team, and that's key. So the program impact was a data-driven culture, led to cleaner strategic data. We got more information out of the field. We had better morale, which allowed us to retain our guys, and then the model is provable to be scalable, as demonstrated in this mid-sized and underperforming region. So Green Bay was the heavy lift, right? Remember, they are the ones that had the staffing problems and historically slow launching times. Well, we fixed all of that. We also, the immediate opportunity is we should deploy. This model should be deployed statewide or regional or campaign wide for the 2026 cycle. They should begin recruitment now in 2025, and we need to secure early funding for mapping, staffing, and infrastructure now so that we can save a lot more money on the back end as we're looking forward into 2026. So long term, this investment's going to have better field staff, better training programs. We're going to have better canvassers, better data, better cost per contact. It makes everything after that, all this preparation makes everything after it that much more valuable and more accurate and more reliable. And we can use it moving forward to talk to voters, talk to them about what they actually care about, because we'll know what their top 3 issues are. And more importantly, we need to take that culture of field, the integrity of central campaign, and make it one of the central campaign pillars in the organization. If we're able to do that, and the field becomes the campaign, and the campaign learns from the field, you're just going to have a better outcome overall. So in conclusion, the Green Bay program field experiment exceeded all expectations. Like I said, we delivered higher contacts, lower costs, and significantly improved turnout among critical voter blocks, which is the name of the game. If you can do those things, the program's a win. So thank you for watching. If you wish to support the work I do on this channel, absolutely. I'm on Substack. I'm also on YouTube. I look forward to talking to everybody. All right. You have a good day.